Is everybody here?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. Surface cleaning. It's very important. We've talked a lot about what dust can do to objects, and it's really very important to look at your objects and make sure there's no serious dust on your objects, because insects love dust. They'll be attracted to the dust, and if the humidity levels are going up and down all the time, your dust carries different things with it. And so if you have, like, I was working someplace that was very, very polluted, and they wanted to analyze the surface of some of their paintings. And what they were finding is that there was tin and carbon on the surface of their paintings, but the paintings were not made with tin and carbon. And so what they were, instead of analyzing what the paint was on the object, they were actually analyzing the pollution that was on top of the object. And so if you're living in a really highly industrial city where there's lots and lots of cars, and now that we're going from diesel back to petrol doesn't have as many lead emissions, but there'll be lead in the air. And so when that settles on your objects, and then moisture hits it, it can start corrosion, especially with metal objects. So since you have a lot of sculptures and metal stupas and things like that, it's very, very important to understand that the uneven levels of humidity can possibly cause a lot of problems with your objects. It will anyway, but if you got a lot of dust on it, it'll make it even worse, and you'll find there's a lot more corrosion on your objects than you would if you would keep them clean. And so, I don't know how to put this. In all instances, cleanliness is next to dharma, I think. You have to I don't know if that's the right term to use, but you have to make sure that everything is clean. So as you're cleaning your inner souls, you have to make sure that the exterior is clean also. So one of the things, the conservation vacuum cleaners are very expensive. And so what I have found, and this is incredibly portable, it's a keyboard cleaner. And I really like it because it also has very low suction. And so there's lots of you bought a nice small vacuum cleaner, but the vacuum cleaner, I can't get the museum things to work on it, but it's a really good vacuum cleaner for cleaning around your space, cleaning inside cases, and I'll bring that out in a second. It's really good for cleaning around your sculpture. So if you have your sculpture and there's a little space behind it, even in the monasteries, you should really make sure that's clean. And the one that he bought would be perfect for that. And this is rechargeable, doesn't use batteries. It does have a bit of a shelf life. It only recharges for so many years, and then it will die. I've had 2 of these now. They get extreme use, so very, very heavy use. And so I think normally you wouldn't clean your keyboard quite like I use these, but they still last us a couple of years. And so they're not expensive. I think, how much was it, the one we bought today? The one we bought, you purchased today, was it 2,000 rupees, a little over 2,000 rupees? And they come in, the same one will be many different prices, but the cheapest we found was 2,000 rupees. So it's very doable. So I've done a few small adaptations. Sadly, the first one that I had that looked exactly like this, my conservation attachments fit. This one's bigger. So this is the big tube, and I don't like using this one so much because it's got this very stiff brush on it, and I can stop that by putting a piece of muslin or a piece of very open weave gauze over it, but it still has very stiff brushes. So I take that away, and On the inside, which has now been pushed in, I'll have to pull it back out. I've taken some what I call ethafoam. It's a little plastic, it's a very squishy, kind of rubbery, it comes in strips, not very thick. And so I wrap it around, and this is a conservation grade attachment. You can buy these from CS, and luckily brought the whole kit that you can use on other vacuum cleaners. So I do that, I wrap it around there, and then I just squish it back in there. It's not as stable as I like, but I kind of like that too, because when you're surface cleaning, you really want to be careful that you're not damaging the surface of the object. And so I like it that it's not so stiff. This one is very stiff, it doesn't move around, and so if something happens and you kind of just press a little too hard, it moves itself. It kind of will move to the side. So I like that. This has got several filters. The one I took off here is just a little screen, a very fine screen. It fits inside here. Oops, goes the other way. It has a little ridge here. That goes towards the your attachment. No, it's not going to go in. Okay. And the nice thing about that is that it catches a lot of the dirt already. You can take that off. You can brush it off with a brush, and you can wash it so you can clean it. You have to be gentle with it. It will get damaged, but it's pretty robust, so you can clean it. And then to make sure that you're not, anything that's not getting caught by that, there's another, just a little sponge. It's like sponge. And this also, that fits there. So I'm going to take that one out because it looks a little dirty. And they come in several different, you've got a fine, a not so fine. Those two are not so, that goes that way. And then a very not so, whoops. And then a very not so fine. I don't use this one very often. It's not really useful. This is fine, that one's a very fine one. And you can see it's catching the dust that the first one didn't catch. So it's a good little tool. It's really helped me in a lot of situations where I'll demonstrate it out there, but it also works anywhere and on anything. Except for paper, I would be rather hesitant. Oops, wait, no. Okay. What's going on? Usually it's very easy. Maybe I did put it on wrong. Sorry, I'm gonna have to push it out. Yeah, I had it the wrong way. And I charged it. Hopefully the charge is still there. It usually lasts for a long time. Oops. And it doesn't take, it's not very strong. And that's the one thing that's really good about it. I'll turn it off. One of the things, the lovely thing about the conservation grade vacuum cleaners is they have a dial on them that can make the suction harder or softer. This only has one, but it's so soft that I would use it. I would not feel too worried about using it on anything except I would never ever use a vacuum cleaner on a painted surface that's not good. So I would never use this on a Tonka painted surface. I would only use it on the brocade. So there are exceptions to the use of this. You could use it on paper if it's not too fragile. There's all sorts of uses. It really can be used on almost every object except for anything that's very fragile, has any kind of lifting or flaking or anything like that. Then you don't do that. You leave it alone. So I also, and we'll demonstrate this on the textile. In this particular case, I don't think you need it. Any of these, we don't need it. But I have always, with textiles, used, it's insect screening. This is a plastic insect screening. That's a very important point. It has to be plastic or polyester, polyvinyl, but it has to be plastic. If it's metal, it's gonna damage your object. And so you can feel, I'll pass that around. And this one's quite open, and you can buy it in all different grades, so you can get it finer and finer and finer. So if I'm using it on a textile and I've got a very damaged textile, I'll use a much finer one. But we have very robust textiles that I'm gonna use it on. So anyway, I'll pass that around so you understand what I'm talking about. So there are several, thank you for giving me that, I meant to get that, wherever they went. I've got several different types of brushes here, and I'm gonna pass them around because I think it's really, it's very important to understand the type of brush that you're gonna use. And I'm talking about brushing and vacuuming. And so I want you to feel these, and then I want all of you to tell me which ones you think are the best. Yeah, do it kind of quickly. And earlier today, we talked about the use of these sponges. So this one is the makeup sponge. This one is the chemical sponge. And I have two types of makeup sponge. And I'm going to pass, again, I'm going to pass these three pieces around, and I want you to feel the difference between them. Okay. Oops. While you're all looking at that, this one is a surgical grade, as Anne had mentioned. This one you can buy in any makeup store in the planet. And I had mentioned it to several of you, but I can't remember if we mentioned it. It should say non-vinyl. So if you can find it with no vinyl, that would be perfect. If you can't, then these work too, but you just don't use them. You have to be careful how you use them. But they work perfectly.
These are the surgical?
These are surgical ones, and they come from a manufacturer. We can give you the name of the manufacturer. These you can buy in any makeup store, and you can tell the difference. You feel the difference. Yeah, they're sending them around. So. And usually I put an edging around it. If I'm using it on textiles, I take cotton tape, fold it over, and sew it to the whole edge. I'll mention that. And I don't have a copy of it, because my one was so big I couldn't, and I don't want to fold it up.
Does the smaller bristle, the brushes, they don't come with this one, right?
No, they come from the conservation. Yeah, from Europe, it's a company called PEL, Preservation Equipment Limited. Very expensive. The CCS in Delhi also carries these products, and they're expensive. So, but if you get them, then you just treat them like gold, and you don't lose them. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna keep going. Well, I don't want to take too much time. Okay. So I'm gonna ask you, grade this one. Would you use this on an object?
No, it's quite small.
Very good.
It's very hard.
It does work on certain objects, and it works on certain types of dirt. So archaeological objects, you can use this if it's not fragile, because oftentimes archaeological objects have a lot of dirt on them, and you have to just gently brush it away. And this will work, but I don't usually use this type of brush on anything. This synthetic brush, what do you think about it?
We have been using this.
Yeah, these are good. It's so soft. You know, you do this and it's like, oh, it's really wonderful. And I have somewhere, I can't find them right now. Another thing that you can use, again, is makeup brushes. Yeah, and you can buy them anywhere, and they come in all different sizes. You can get round ones, you can get flat ones, you can get tiny ones, and that's really great because it gives you a really great range of things that you need. So if you have a crevice like in here that's filled with dirt, you can use a tiny, you know, you can still get it this way, but sometimes there's just that little bit you can't lift the dirt out of. And so having a range of different sizes and different, not just flat, but round. And then last but not least,
Japanese brush.
yeah.
Horse here. Japanese horse. Horse here.
No, it's rabbit. It's rabbit. Rabbit or cat. Sadly, in China, they use rabbit or cat. And so, but it is so soft. And it's big. And again, these are more expensive than these. Again, you can buy these in all different sizes and shapes. You can get them all the way down to tiny, tiny little thing. You can get them very short, so they're stiffer, and that's really good for encrusted dirt on a metal object because they won't scratch it at all. They'll never scratch it, but you still get a stiff-ish. You know, this is kind of stiff. This is stiff but softer. This could scratch your object. So you have to really, really think about using this particular brush on the surface. You have to look at your surface constantly and assess which one you can use. This could scratch, say like the gold on a metal. It could really scratch.
Looks like very small one.
Uh-huh.
So we touch.
It's very soft.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you've got a cold gold Buddha with on his face, and you're going to do this, and maybe there's been a little bit of humidity and it's gotten under the paint, you could just this one would also do that, but it will be less likely to do it, and this one will be less likely to scratch any metal object that you're using. This one could scratch. And another thing that we do, and we have to really think about this, is when you're working with an object, this has a metal band around it. And so this will scratch your object. I often take, and I don't recommend this ever using it on an object, but I take masking tape and just put a little strip around to cover up that edge. You can think of other things to do. You could even do Japanese paper, but it won't stick to the metal as well. So, but a little strip of masking tape, a couple times around will protect you from it'll stop you from ever going, accidentally you're going like this and you scratch it, because that will really scratch your object. These are much, much less likely to do that. Makeup brushes also are they don't have metal around them. They're plastic usually. Plastic can scratch, but usually not. So I think this one you can see, this one's very fat, this one's very thin. And I'm going to start with the metal, and I'm going to talk about that and demonstrate how I usually clean an object. I usually clean an object by brushing the dust into the vacuum cleaner. I don't do this. Yeah, I do this. So I'll turn it on. I think I'll do it this way so everyone can see. I just gently lay it on there and I brush into it. And you do that and one of the main, really important thing to think about is that I start from the top always. I start from the top and I brush from the top down. This just moves a lot. So you have to really think about that too. What we talked about earlier about testing your object and making sure that everything is safe. That's a problem. That's a problem. I'm going to use the big one just because that's not going to stay. Yeah. But so now I'm going to be really careful about not touching this to this. I can see that this is not working that well because some dust is really ingrained. And so you just have to think about it. So this one's a little stiffer than this one. So I wouldn't even try to use that one because it won't take the dust off. But you might have to really work just gently. Really gently work that without moving it too much. And I don't know about you guys, but you have to be ambidextrous. You really do. You have to be able to use your left and your right hand so you can change. I would normally work on a smaller table where I could actually move around the object instead of having to do this, because it actually puts the object at risk. I could drop this like my, my thing did. Luckily, it is very soft. But it's also, you know, you can see how difficult this is because this is wobbling, but it's whoops, I won't do any more on that. And I start out by vacuuming everything. I never go straight in. I mean, you can do that with paper, but I don't with objects because there's always a fine layer of surface dirt. Like if I'm sure you have all noticed on this one has a lot of surface dirt. It's got also, where's its little ear? Where's his ear? Oh, it's in his hand. There it is. Yeah, it was down in his lap. So that's, you know, you really have to check your objects. And so like this one moves a lot. You know, doing that, you know, it rocks like that. So one thing that you can do, it's really, these things are great. You can use them for a lot of things. As I was doing it, it was rocking. And so let's stick one of these under there, if that'll stay. I'm not sure it's going to stay. Might not be. This might not be. Or I put it on what we call plastizote or ethafoam. And so it sits into the ethafoam. So every time I'm trying to use these are a bit too spongy. Every time I try to use, I'm doing it. So see how it's made it stable? So it's not rocking now. So, you know, those are the things I try to look at first. I try to figure out how stable it is. I make sure it's embedded and safe, and I make sure all the parts are attached. If the parts, like the front of this is not attached or is very movable, then I have to be very careful with it. But all of this can be accomplished, you know, with the big one or this one. And I just would start from the top, work all the way down, make sure I get all four sides and all the different angles. And then once I've done that, I take, this is quite strong. So there's another reason to have a bit softer one, is that because you saw this is a bit loose, it's still very loose, I can't stop that. I would always hold this piece, and make sure that's, and then I would take this one and I would just gently wipe. And the first thing I do though, after a couple of little wipes, is I look at the tip. Make sure that I'm not taking any of the gold or the patina off of any object that we work on. You always constantly look at the tip, look at whatever it is that you're using. There's a bit of dirt coming off. Doesn't look like there's anything on it. This one's going to take a lot of work. The dust that's been sitting on the surface of this object has been there for a long time. So it's actually kind of not annealed, but it has attached itself to the object. So it's going to take a little work. Then because this isn't working as well, I might go to this one because it's just a little stronger. So I can go in again and see how much more I can remove from this section. And because this is metal, and I don't see anything coming off when I do this, this is working better. So there's different qualities. So, you know, this one got a bit off, this one got more. And so, you know, you just have to think about what the surface is like, and you have to constantly assess. So I wouldn't just go and just go, okay, this one works, you know, and just go and do the whole thing. I would constantly check to make sure I'm not taking any metal or any of the gold away from it, because every area has been subject to a different type of degradation or something. You know, it could have had water on one side and not on the other side. So the side that has water could be flaking or could come off the gold could come off much easier than the other side. So I'm always assessing as I'm cleaning. It's really important, because if you don't do that, you could be sitting there merrily going along like this and then go, I've just taken half the gold off. You know, so it's really important to just continually assess. And with metals, because this has got a lot of ingrained stuff, I might take it after I've cleaned it completely with this, you know, vacuum this, I might, because it's metal, use some form of solvent on it. But because I don't know anything about this metal, I'd really have to look at it, and I don't recommend this at all. No water, absolutely no water whatsoever, because it can get inside, it can do all sorts of damage. It can, this is quite, you know, it's got a lot of pieces to it. So I never use water. It would have to be a type of solvent that evaporates, but then I would have to test it, and you really have to know what you're doing, because any kind of solvent could take the surface of the gold off, it could take the paint off, it could change, you know, the patina of the piece. And patina is quite important because sometimes it's intentional. You know, you have some of the bronze statues that are brown, that's intentional. It's not because it's dirty, it's not because, you know, so you really have to assess the object, decide on what you know, do some testing, and then decide on how you're going to treat it, and then start from the top and go down. I'm going to do this one just quickly because I don't think we'll do this one. This one I think has some problems that we can't do with just simple surface cleaning. This one though is quite good. I'm looking at it. It does have some flaking paint. So I would avoid the areas of flaking paint. I would vacuum it completely, starting from the top, going down. And then sometimes Anne was doing this earlier, you test a little spot. I never test on the front. You know, the side that you see the most, I never test on that. I always test on a little hidden bit, because if you get it off here and you start right in the middle, you've got a nice clean spot, and you can't get it off the rest of it. So then you've got this funny clean spot in the middle of it. Or it's really good practice to always try on an area that's not visible to the public or the people that are viewing it. And so I haven't done this, so I'm going to do a little bit of vacuuming. And I'm going to do this surface back here. I don't think it's going to show as much, but this is a really good brush for this, except on the head where the paint is. I still think I would use this brush to do it, but this one's very soft. And I always check the brush too. I always look at the brush, because if there's flaking paint that I can't see visibly, you know, and sometimes if it's problematic like this, I would use a magnifying glass. I would look at his head and really make sure, because there's lots of missing paint on this. I would use the magnifying glass and really make sure that that paint's adhered, and I'm not just looking, you know, that it's not just missing, because it could just be missing. Could have been hit, you know, banged, like sadly, like the fingers and his ear. That's physical damage. That's not damage from any other thing except physical damage. So sadly, he's been through the wars a little bit. He's been definitely just damaged physically. So then again, I look at my thing, I take just a little swipe. Nothing came off. Nothing, you see there's a bit of dirt on there. So I'm doing it a little harder, but I always test the pressure. I decide if the pressure, if you can use the pressure, then I really, I do it softly and just make it hard, do it a little harder, and I never push hard. I never, it's always a little bit of a drag across. It's a dampening kind of, but I never go like this, ever. You'll lose paint. You'll find this will catch on a loose, like if there's a little crack in the paint, this will catch on it and you'll just pop the paint right off. So I'm very careful. I want to try the shoulder. I'm going to do it on the back because this is gold paint and it's different. These two types of paints are different. So you've got multiple types of paint. The black on his head is different. This paint and the gold, let me see, and the eyes and the mouth, they're all different types of paint. So you have to look at those individually and make sure that there's nothing going on. And use a magnifying glass because it'll tell you what the surface of the paint is actually doing. So I'm going to do this shoulder because I don't know if you can see. It's got a lot of dust on it. Yeah, it's got quite a lot of dust. You can really see it on the front. So I'm going to try this little bit in his robe, this little crease in his robe, and then I'm going to do a little bit back here. And I think I'll use this. That got quite a lot out. And one of the most important things that I didn't say first, you photograph your object first. You photograph it and you clean it and then you photograph it again. And you can take details of the area. If you're in a museum, this is really important, but it helps you visualize actually how much you've cleaned. So you take a photograph, got my handy dandy, camera, and I get out and I take a photograph and let's see if we can get one that shows more. Okay. And I try to do, we do our documentation. We take the front, back, sides for our documentation. We write our, what we think the condition is. And then when we start cleaning, we can take details. You can take a little detail of his head and see if that helps at all, And once you've cleaned it, you can look at your before pictures and then your after pictures. And you've got a really good record, so you know that you've cleaned it. And then when you go to look at it again, if it's dirty again, you can refer back to what you think, what you've already done. And then you have to look at why it's getting dirty. So there's a whole process. So I've cleaned his shoulder here a little bit. Let's just see if there's any. And shoulders and flat spaces on objects are where all the dust is going to be the most.
Shoulder and head.
Yeah. There's dirt coming off. It's not a lot. So you don't have to work too hard on this one. I think so you can see, I vacuumed it, but there is a lot of dirt on there. Can anybody tell me why there might be more dirt on the gold than on the orange?
Because it's a different paint.
Different paint. Why? But what more than that? It is a different paint. What about the surface? Anybody? Yeah, he said it over here. Why? And you said it too. But this is a different type of paint. It's got gold particles in it. It's not shiny. It's not slick. So the dirt is going to settle into this more readily than it is on this. This is shiny and very slick, and so the dirt for a long time will just fall away, but it'll just sit, it'll sit on your shoulders, you know, it'll sit in that paint. And that's why you especially have to vacuum first, and then you get a lot more dirt than you would from this. I didn't get that much dirt from this side, you know. There is, you know, I could work harder at it, but for time's sake, I won't do that. I'm not going to touch his top knot, just because if you were going to do that, you would vacuum it, and then you would have to very gently just flick in like that. Let's see, and it's very dirty. I haven't vacuumed it, right? Look how much dirt I got in just that little bit. But I will vacuum it. Because I've looked at it, and it's actually, it's okay. Yeah, the paint is okay. And it made the brush a little dirty. So you're going to have more dirt in this area because, again, it's the type of surface it is. Well, let's see if I can get a clean one. It's still pretty dirty, but it's not as dirty as it was. You compare that to that. You know, there's still dirt in there, but I got a lot off with the brush and the vacuum. So, you see that? Okay, yeah. So this is after vacuuming. There's still dirt. This is before vacuuming. So you're getting a lot of dirt out with the vacuuming. I haven't used this at all. This is a very good cleaner, but it leaves behind. It's very powdery, or not powdery. It can, if you use too much on it. Like I'll do this right here. It is really good. Nothing. We cleaned it already. It is very good, but it can leave particles behind. So if I use this type of sponge, I always vacuum it again afterwards. And it's a trade secret. They won't tell us what's in this. And I don't know if it's, when I handle this with my bare hands, it makes my fingers feel funny. And it could be that it's sucking all the oil out of my hand and that oil is going onto this. So if you use this without gloves, and you get it all oily from your hands, then you're actually transferring oil onto the object. I don't know if that's the reality, because they won't tell us what's in it, but my fingers always feel oily afterwards. So it may be it's giving something to me, or I'm transferring all my oil from my fingers onto it. So it's a tricky one, but I use gloves when I use these. Okay, let's go outside. The first thing you do is we take a photograph. So because I would normally take a whole photograph, but I'm only going to work on this shoulder. So right now, just for a time keeping to quicker, I'm going to just take a photograph of this shoulder. So there's a lot of the problems here is there's an obstacle in my way. It's quite tall. And so that's one reason why I'm only going to do the shoulder. We'd have to get a ladder, and you have to think about all these things. I came out, I assessed, I realized I'm going to need a ladder. I'm going to need somebody to work with me, because you never work on a ladder by yourself. I know it's very difficult in a lot of institutions where you're the only person, but you need to work that into your schedule and say, I will need someone to help me with this. You really have to think about everything that you might need. So I would make a plan that I'm going to clean all of these mannequins. I would say I'm going to need someone to help me. I'm going to need a ladder. I'm going to need all my tools and a vacuum cleaner. And sometimes I have 2 vacuum cleaners. So if this one, the battery dies on me, I don't have to sit and wait for it to charge back up. If I only have one, though, then what I do is all my documentation. So while it's charging. So there's, you just think about how you can work these things in. And so, oops, that's not what I want. So I'm going to take a photo, stepping over this. And it's not, I've got a lot of shadow because we've got a light, so I'm going to just angle it a little bit. And I'm going to do it. And what I'm trying to do is show the dust. So what I'm photographing is the dust. I'm not photographing the object as in, the whole thing. I've already done all my documentation. I've done my full-length photos, and the front, side, and back. And so what I'm really doing is just trying to capture on my phone the dust. And I'll let's see which one's better. Okay, that one's not good at all. This doesn't quite do it. I'm going to do some more. And oops. And so I keep trying until I get a good picture. And with more, the phone keeps compensating. That's one of the things you have to really try hard with these phones, is it keeps compensating. Okay, there's a bit right there. Okay, so this one, I'll pass my phone around. You can see, it's not the best picture, but you can see the dust sitting in the crevices right along this ridge here. And so I think I'm going to use this. It's pretty soft. I don't think it's going to damage the material at all. I would prefer to use this, but this is going to get dirty really fast. And so if I don't have more than one of these, then I have to clean it. I would vacuum it first, and then I would go and wash it, and with just plain water. I mean, some people use a little warm soapy water, but I don't use soap at all, especially if I'm dealing with textiles. Because if you leave any of the soap on your brush, it transfers onto the textile, and that can be a problem. It can stain it, it can do all sorts of things, and it's very minor, but you really have to be careful. You have to think about everything that you do. This is much easier to clean. The dirt does not stay in it. It really does come off. You will see this edge get very, very dirty. And when you constantly check your brush, you check it for any parts of the object, but you check it for how much dirt it's picked up. And once it's dirty, you clean it. And if I've got two, so if this got really dirty, I can clean it, leave it out to dry, and continue to work. So I've got it's thinking about how you can keep the process going smoothly and not quickly, but you can really get a lot of work done if you think ahead and plan how you're going to do it. So I'm going to start. This, if I was using my other one, I might actually use the brush on it because this is pretty embedded. But I'm just going to try, and if I really don't want a brush at all, I'm going to take this out. I take the brush off. This has got the little white screen on the inside. A lot of people will put a piece of gauze or muslin over this to stop any of the bits that might fall off of the object from going inside. I usually do that, but in this particular case, because this has got this beautiful little screen on the inside, if any bits come off, it's captured there. It's not lost forever. It's not gone into a big canister. So if I was using a regular vacuum cleaner, I would always put gauze over the end of it. The gauze does slow things down. Again, it gets dirty, it collects all the dirt, and finally your vacuum cleaner stops working. So you have to clean the gauze all the time too. So again, I would have little bits of gauze. I couldn't find any to use, so that's why I don't have it on here today. So. And again, we start from the top. His hat is going to be very, very, very dirty, but I can't reach it. And for demonstration purposes, I'm going to just do from his shoulder. There's a lot of dust on his neck, so I'm going to start on his neck. And as you can see, I'm not pressing hard. I'm always brushing into the vacuum cleaner, never away from it. Can you see any difference from there?
Yes.
Can you? Yeah, it's hard for me. It's hard for me to see. But I can see a difference. If you come over here, you can see is there another reason why the dust still may look like it's there?
Because of light.
Those colors already faded.
Yes. This has had a lot of light damage. It probably was if we could find a little fold maybe. Let's see. Is that gonna? I can't do it up too much to its shoulder. It's not too bad, but I do think there's light fading on it. The whole thing could be light faded. If we looked under here, let's see if I can move that away a little bit. No, it doesn't really look too bad. How's it look from there? Does it look like there's fading, or is it just? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and that's how you know. And that's one good way to also check your light levels. If you've got an object on display and you think it's looking funny, maybe changing color, you definitely, and if it's got multiple parts like this, where one's overlaying one part like this, red is more exposed than underneath there, you can look at it and you can see oftentimes a huge difference. We talked about this with the Tibet Museum, how you think the light levels are too high and that it's actually fading the cloth on the backboards where the objects are actually displayed. The only way we'll be able to really see that is to take the objects off. And if there's a perfect, shape of the object, then your light levels are way too high. And the Tibet Museum's only been open a little over a year. Yeah, so that's incredible light fading. If that's truly what's happening, that's extraordinary light fading, and you need to turn your lights down. And we talked about it. There's their lights. Your lights don't dim. You can't change them, right? But if they're LED lights, you can buy UV filters of different color, or not colors, but different gradations. So you've got a lighter UV film all the way to a darker one to change you can literally just wrap it around the LED because they have spots. You can put it over the spot. Sometimes they have little things you can make you're all extremely brilliant. And you'll be able to devise a way to put the film over that, and that will lower your light levels. And then you can change it. Because one thing that's really important to understand is that any UV filter degrades. And so you can't just leave it there for the rest of its life or your life. You have to change it. It can degrade within 2 to 3 years. And so if you have a UV filter, you have to change it 2 to 3 years. A lot of people thought when they first started making UV filters for museums that you spend a great amount of money putting in UV film and UV windows, and they realized later that the UV film itself degrades, and so after a few years, 5 years, it's no longer working. So it's something you have to build into your museum schedules. If your light levels are too high, you don't have to change your lights. There are other solutions to making the light levels go down. So anyway, one really, this is not best practice, so maybe I won't do it. One way to really tell whether your object is very dusty is just to take this on a dusty, not put it on it, but just set it someplace dusty. And I'll do it on the back, never do it on the front. And I'm not putting it on it, but I'm just sort of sitting it there. Whoops. I'm not very steady. Whoops. And you can see that you can't really see it very well. But you can see, you just hold it not too far away from the object and let it just sit in that one spot, not on the front, but on the back. And you'll be able to see how dusty your object is, and then you can make that also the decision to clean the whole object. So we don't have enough vacuum cleaners. I wanted to get you guys all cleaning. But so could we, do you want, maybe I'll take a couple of volunteers. So you can maybe all try. It would be really nice to clean this whole object. So we've got how many minutes?
20 minutes.
20 minutes? Okay, so a couple of you can get a chance to try. Start from the top, this back bit here. Let's do it from the back and see if we can get, there's a lot of dust back here. We'll just do this little surface right here. So who wants to try? Come on, you guys. Okay, you two were first. Do you want to try? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to have you. I'm having you work in pairs. So I'm going to have you work in pairs. So switch off. And the reason I'm having you work in pairs is one can be doing the cleaning. Yep. The other one can be observing and making sure that they're not doing any damage. It's always good to have another pair of eyes. So you could be very happily cleaning here, and that whole side is going, you know, it's doing something really, really funny. And so it's really good to work in pairs. If we had a ladder, you would definitely work in pairs, and you would observe each other. So I'll let you go first. Yeah, so that's a brush. And then you just press this.
Okay. So we work together?
Yeah, he's gonna watch while you do it to make sure, and then you're gonna switch over and let him do. So just do it for a tiny bit, not for very long, yeah. So you just press that. I'm wearing gloves today. You don't have to because you're not touching the object, but I was touching the objects earlier and I was using those cleaning things. We can use, and I'm gonna try, just before he gets started and before everybody disappears, you can also use these. And so the area that I just vacuumed, I'm going to see how much more dirt I can get off. So I'll try that. I'm sorry I was jumping ahead, but I want you guys to try this. So I clean from here down to here. So yeah, I got a lot more dirt, you guys. So the vacuuming's good, but we have to, there's another process. So we'll vacuum, and then just like on the sculptures in there, we can use this and vacuum again. So, okay. It loosens the dirt, so if the dirt is really heavily, because this is very fluffy, and so it gets inside the felt. Okay. I'll stay here. No, it's okay. I don't need to. Go ahead. Yeah. I mean, one thing to do that you can do, be very careful. We could turn this a little bit. So yeah, let me do it. Okay.
Also, you watch what else is around you, just in case you bump into the other mannequin.
Yeah.
Like
so yeah, we're in a very confined space here. We've only got a small amount of workspace. So that's why, because I think I can turn this. Yeah, I won't bring it out, no, I think. So I'm going to test. Mannequins always are made of many parts. And so if you're going to move a mannequin, you always move it by the stand. You don't move it by the mannequin. But what I'm going to do right now is just to test it, to see that even just by turning the stand, whether something falls off. I mean, his hat could fall off. He's got big jewelry, you know. And I've had to clean whole galleries that have had 150 costumes on mannequins. And you really have to be careful. You know, you can get yourself in trouble. So I'm going to ask you to step down. I'm going to get back up here. And I'm testing. I'm just going to gently. Ooh, he's very heavy. He's heavy. Yeah. So I'm going to ask one of you to come over here. And he's spotting. I'm going to have you there. Don't touch it. Okay. Yeah. You're going to just stand in front. And so as I'm moving, if it starts to go over, catch it. Yeah, just put your hands up, yeah. We should have gloves on, but don't worry. I hope it's not going to move. Because let's see, his leg, he's pretty he's kind of stuck on there. So there's a lot of weight on his leg. So you want to make sure you're not twisting his leg off. You're pretty good. I'm gonna not let him do it for too long. I think that's probably enough. And switch over. So you watch him and make sure he's not doing anything dangerous. So you have to watch where he's finished. So that's another thing. If you're trading off, you got to watch where he stopped. So you start where he stopped, from where he stopped.